They say silence is golden. But that morning, silence felt like a verdict. 42 faces stared at me, waiting for my voice to rise above the failure glowing on the giant screen behind me. My slide, my 6 months of research, my 27 emails, my 43 revisions was gone. Just static, flickering, mocking me in front of a $5 million client. My fingers trembled. The air felt colder than the AC ever could. I heard my own heartbeat louder than the clicking of the projector. And in that frozen second, all I could think was, they finally got what they wanted. I remember the exact moment 3 days before, when the email came in. Zahra, you'll lead the pitch on Friday. Just 12 words. 12 words that could change everything. I sat at my desk in my tiny apartment in South Central, half a cup of cold coffee beside me, staring at the screen. It was 11:17 p.m. The city humming outside my window like it didn't know I was about to carry the weight of generations on my shoulders. I called Mama right after. She picked up on the second ring, voice half asleep but warm. "Baby, you sound like you're breathing dreams again." I laughed, trying not to cry. They finally chose me. Mama. I'm leading the pitch. And she said the words that always wrap around me like armor. When they want you to fail, let your brilliance speak louder than your fear. I saved that voice note, played it 7 times that night. The next morning, I woke up at 5:42, before the sun. I brewed cheap coffee, the kind that tastes like hope and exhaustion. My laptop glowed in the dark, slides 1 through 46 staring back at me like soldiers waiting for battle. Every color coded, every data point perfect. I'd written 27 emails to confirm facts, redrafted our opening line 5 times. This proposal, I whispered, will be the reason they remember my name. At work, the air smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. Melissa from corporate strategy passed my desk, her perfume too sweet to hide the bitterness underneath. "Big day Friday, huh?" she said. "Don't choke." I smiled, but inside, something flickered. I'd seen that smile before, the one that says, "You don't belong here." By noon, I'd received 4 urgent requests from her team, each one eating away at my prep time. But I didn't complain. That's not what we do. We stay late. We get it done. I left the office at 11:03 p.m. The janitor, the only witness to my exhaustion. At home, I found my reflection in the bathroom mirror, cracked on the left corner since last year. I looked at it and said softly, "Cracks don't ruin mirrors. They just remind us we've survived." My phone buzzed, a reminder. Presentation in 3 days. 3 days. 3 days to be flawless. I took off my blazer, unbraided my hair, and turned on the recording app. "Slide 32, I whispered, rehearsing in the dark. The intersection of data and justice. I must have fallen asleep mid-sentence, because when I woke, my laptop was still playing my own voice, hoarse, tired, determined. Thursday night, 47A. I was still awake. I'd just rewritten the closing paragraph. Our proposal isn't just numbers, it's a story about people. I remember typing that line and feeling Mama's words echo. Brilliance louder than fear. When I finally shut the laptop, I caught my reflection again. My eyes looked older, but stronger. I didn't feel like a junior associate anymore. I felt like a storm about to speak. Friday came too bright, too fast. I wore my navy suit, the one that makes me look like I belong in boardrooms, even if I'm still paying off student loans. The subway ride felt endless. A kid across from me smiled and said, "You look important." I laughed. "I'm trying to be." Outside the firm, the sky was heavy, clouds gathering like they knew something was about to happen. Inside, the halls were buzzing. Everyone in sleek suits, talking numbers, deals, percentages. I walked past the conference room once just to feel its air, sterile, rich, intimidating. My heart thudded like a drumline at a homecoming game. I took one deep breath and whispered, "Do it for her. Do it for every woman they said was too soft, too black, too loud." Then I walked in. 42 people. One projector. My future. I placed my flash drive in the laptop, felt the tiny vibration as it connected. My first slide appeared, crisp, blue, flawless. I smiled. For 3 seconds, everything was perfect. Then the lights flickered. The screen glitched. Numbers disappeared. Graphs turned into noise. Melissa looked up from her seat, crossed her arms, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Guess she wasn't ready for prime time. My throat went dry. The client's face shifted from polite to impatient. The senior partner leaned back, eyes already tired. That silence again. The kind that burns. I wanted to scream, to point, to blame, but I didn't. I remembered Mama's voice, calm as prayer. When they want you to fail, let your brilliance speak louder. I straightened my shoulders, looked out at the sea of faces, and said, "Give me 1 minute." I unplugged the drive, closed my laptop, and the whole room watched like something sacred was about to happen. Inside, my pulse was chaos. But outside, I was still. Because deep down, I knew if this was the moment they wanted to see me fall, it would be the same moment I'd learn how to fly. They say silence in the office means peace. But that night, silence felt like something breathing down my neck. I remember the clock hitting 11. 47 p.m., just me, the glow of my laptop, and a folder named Client Presentation Final V3. I'd read that name so many times my eyes memorized every pixel. 15 slides. 12 days of research. 37 emails back and forth with the client. It was my baby. My proof that I deserved the seat I'd worked 5 years for. And yet, something felt off. Earlier that afternoon, while I was in the break room reheating my coffee, I overheard 2 voices, soft, too soft. "She really thinks she's ready for tomorrow?" One said. The other laughed, a low whisper. "We'll see how ready she is when the file doesn't open." They didn't know I was there. They didn't even care enough to lower their voices. I stood behind the vending machine, heart pounding, pretending to check my phone. That laugh, yeah, I knew it. It was Vanessa. The same woman who'd smiled at me every Monday morning, calling me sis like it meant solidarity. At 8:32 p.m., my inbox pinged with her name. "Just added some final touches to your deck. Hope that's cool." I stared at the smiley face for a full minute, my finger hovering over the mouse. I'd seen help before. I'd seen how collaboration can sometimes mean control. So I saved a backup, 2, actually, on a flash drive, labeled Truth 1 and Truth 2. My mama always said, "When they underestimate you, baby, that's your chance to document everything." 7s. Still, a small part of me wanted to believe maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was genuinely helping. I tried to shake it off. But my gut? subconscious never lied to me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the laugh, the whisper, the email. I saw their reflections in the glass of the conference room earlier that day, Vanessa and her little shadow, Tim. They'd been standing behind me when I presented the dry run. I saw them exchange a glance when the senior partner said, "Zahra, this is brilliant." At 2:03 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I opened my laptop again. The slides looked fine. Every chart, every quote, every citation still there. I even rechecked the numbers on slide 9, client growth projection. 142%. My calculations were bulletproof. But I knew sabotage never starts big. It starts microscopic, invisible, and it waits until the moment everyone's watching. Morning came too soon. 6:27 a.m. My alarm hit, and I just stared at the ceiling for a full minute. I told myself, "You belong here. You earned this." Then I got up, fixed my hair, tied it back the way Mama used to for church, and whispered, "Lord, stand with me today." 7s. By 8:45 a.m., the office was buzzing. People pretending to be busy, but all eyes drifting toward the glass conference room. The partners were there. 2 clients from New York had flown in. Mr. Hendricks, the man whose approval could change my entire career, was scrolling his phone, waiting. Vanessa walked in at 8:59 a.m. sharp, wearing a red blazer, carrying that same fake smile. "Morning, Zahra. You ready?" 7s. Always, I said, even though my throat was dry. At 9:02 a.m., the lights dimmed. I plugged in the flash drive. My file opened, but the title slide flickered twice. Then a pop-up. File corrupted. Unable to display content? 7s. A silence so heavy fell across the room, I could hear my own pulse. Mr. Hendricks frowned. Vanessa tilted her head, pretending confusion. "Oh no, did you back it up?" she asked, voice dripping with concern. My hands trembled, but my face didn't show it. I just smiled and said, "Always." I reached for my second flash drive, Truth 2. Slid it in. Same error. That's when I saw it. The file size was wrong. Instead of 47 MB, it was 3 MB. Someone had stripped the data, replaced the charts with empty placeholders. That's not a mistake. That's intent. My chest burned, but my mind, it went still. Clear. Mr. Hendricks sighed, checking his watch. "We don't have time for this." 7s. I looked at the room, 15 people, all watching, all waiting for me to break. The silence stretched. Then I heard Mama's voice again, like she was right behind me. "When they want you to fail, baby, let your mind speak louder than your fear." 7s. I turned off the projector, straightened up, and said, "Give me 3 minutes." 7s. 3 minutes. That's all I asked for. Because I wasn't about to let anyone write my failure story for me. In those 3 minutes, I pulled out a marker, walked to the whiteboard, and drew everything from memory, every chart, every percentage, every line of data. My hand moved faster than my doubt. People whispered. Someone recorded. And the room that had felt like a coffin suddenly felt like a stage. Vanessa's face froze when she realized I wasn't breaking. I was rewriting. At minute 2:30, I stopped, turned, and said, "That's your growth trajectory. projected over the next 5 fiscal years. If you trust us, I'll make sure those numbers turn real. 7s. And then silence. Then applause. Not loud, not long, but real. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw Vanessa lower her eyes. What she didn't know? I'd already emailed myself the proof of her edits, time-stamped, documented, ready. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It's showing you were 10 steps ahead, smiling the whole time. They clapped, and it sounded like thunder under glass. But applause don't always mean victory. Sometimes it's just relief that you didn't crumble where they expected you to. When the meeting ended, I smiled, shook hands, and walked out calm. Inside, my heart was sprinting. Outside, my face was marble. 9:47 a.m. That was the time I learned how quiet a war can sound when you fight it with grace. Vanessa came up behind me near the elevators. "That was impressive," she said. I turned, and for half a second, I almost believed she meant it. But then she added, "Guess even tech issues can't stop you." Huh? Tech issues. She said it like a joke, like I hadn't seen the ghost of guilt flash across her eyes when that file crashed. So I just smiled back, slow, and said, "Yeah, guess not." Then I watched her reflection in the elevator door, the way her lips tightened when she realized I wasn't angry. Just aware. By 10:15, my inbox started blowing up. 28 unread messages in 6 minutes. Brilliant recovery. You saved the pitch. The client's impressed. One email, though, stood out. From Mr. Hendricks. Let's debrief at 4 p.m. Conference room 6. The man never wrote full sentences before. That one line felt like a summons. I knew what it meant. They were going to ask questions. And I was ready for every single one. At 8 p.m., while everyone went to lunch, I went hunting. I pulled up the company's shared drive. Every file had a history, timestamps, users, edits. I scrolled to mine. Client presentation, final V3. There it was. 7:43 p.m. last night. Edited by V. Jenkins. That's Vanessa. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just took a screenshot. Then another. Then I saved the activity log, the version history, and the system ID. Digital fingerprints. My mama used to say, if you ever need to prove the truth, make sure the truth can speak for itself. 7s. At 2:31 p.m. I called it. "Hey, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice light. "Can you send me a copy of the backup logs from last night? I think my file got corrupted." He sighed. "Girl, yeah." There was a weird edit from another user around 7:40 p.m. I was going to flag it, but I figured y'all were working together. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Thanks, Marcus. You just made my afternoon." By 3:59 p.m., I was in conference room 6. Mr. Hendricks was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, that look that could cut glass. Vanessa sat across from him, tapping her pen. When I walked in, she looked up like she owned the room. "Hey, Zahra," she said. I nodded, placed my folder down, and sat. Mr. Hendricks started. "So, great job salvaging that meeting this morning. But I need to understand what went wrong. The client presentation file was corrupted. That's serious. He looked at me, then at Vanessa. You both worked on it, right? Sevens. Vanessa spoke first, fast. Yeah, I helped Zahra last night. Maybe she saved the wrong version? These things happen. Her tone was sugar and venom. I let her finish. Then I opened my laptop, turned it toward them, and said, Actually, I think I can explain exactly what happened. I clicked twice. The screen filled with a list, timestamps, usernames, edits. I zoomed in, highlighted her name. Here's where the file was modified at 7:43 p.m. And here's where data was deleted. System logs don't lie. Sevens. The room went still. Vanessa's pen stopped tapping. Mr. Hendricks leaned forward. You're saying... Sevens. I'm saying, I interrupted softly, I don't make tech mistakes. I make presentations. Someone else made the mistake of thinking I wouldn't notice. Sevens. For a full 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Mr. Hendricks said, I'll handle this. His voice had that low tone that meant someone's job just evaporated. He stood, nodded once, and left. Vanessa looked at me, eyes wide, mouth tight. You set me up, she whispered. I smiled. No, you set yourself up. I just hit save. Sevens. At 5:12 p.m., the email went out company-wide. Effective immediately, Vanessa Jenkins has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. People started whispering before the ink of the pixels even dried. I packed my things slowly that evening. Walked out into the golden Los Angeles light. Checked my phone, 23 missed calls, 18 texts. But the one that mattered was from Mama. Heard about your big win. Proud of you, baby. Remember, class and clarity always beat chaos. Sevens. I stopped walking, right there on the sidewalk, with the sun low and the city humming. Because it hit me. She was right. I didn't need to yell, or curse, or fight dirty. I just needed to be undeniable. The next morning, Mr. Hendricks called me into his office. The client signed the contract, he said. They want you to lead the account. Effective immediately. Sevens. I sat down, smiled, and said, Thank you. Sevens. He nodded. You kept your head when everyone else lost theirs. That's leadership. Sevens. When I left his office, I didn't celebrate. I didn't post anything. I just walked to my desk, opened a new folder, and named it. Grace wins always. Sevens, because that's what Mama taught me. And because sometimes, the loudest victory is the one told in silence. Success has a strange sound. It's not applause. It's not your name in an email subject line. It's quieter, like a hum under the floor, a tension in the air, the way people start watching you differently. 2 weeks after Vanessa got escorted out, that hum was everywhere. Suddenly, every "Hey Zahra" came with a little too much sweetness. Every "we should grab lunch" felt rehearsed. By the end of week 2, I had 12 invitations, 6 LinkedIn messages, and 1 meeting request that changed everything. Monday, 9:13 a.m. Subject line. New client opportunity, confidential. It was from Mr. Hendricks. My stomach flipped, but I smiled. That's the thing about corporate life. Opportunity never knocks. It emails. At 4:00 p.m. sharp, I walked into his office. The blinds were half closed, light cutting through like stripes. He didn't look up right away, just said, Close the door. I did. He leaned back, hands folded. Zahra, you've been making waves. The partners noticed. The clients noticed. I noticed. He paused. We're bringing in a new account, a massive one. $1 billion territory. But it's delicate. Sevens, delicate. That word always hides something sharp underneath. He continued, they need someone discreet, sharp, loyal. Someone who can make problems disappear before they exist. I told them I knew just the person. He slid a folder across the table. My name was printed on the tab. Zahra Williams, lead counsel proposal. I opened it. The company name hit me first. Horizon Dynamics. I'd heard of them. Major tech contractor, government ties, deep pockets, and deeper rumors. Inside were numbers. 7 zeros on the retainer. A team budget that could feed 10 departments. And a non-disclosure agreement that was longer than the client brief. I looked up. What's the catch? Sevens. Hendricks smiled. No catch. Just discretion. They've had some labor disputes overseas. We smooth it out, keep things quiet, keep the client happy. Sevens. Quiet. That word again. Always soft, always dangerous. He leaned forward. Zahra, this could change your career. You'll be sitting at tables people like us rarely get invited to. Heavens, people like us. He didn't mean black women. He meant the ones who fought their way up from cubicles instead of country clubs. But I heard it both ways. I nodded slowly. When do we start? Sevens. He smiled. You already did. For the next 10 days, I lived inside that project. 143 emails, 8 Zoom calls, 2 sleepless nights. The deeper I read, the uglier it got. Horizon's labor disputes weren't disputes, they were cover-ups. Falsified reports. Silenced contractors. Numbers that didn't match. People unpaid for months. And every document had one name attached at the bottom. Legal Oversight, DLA West Group. That's us. At first, I told myself it wasn't my job to fix the world. I was hired to advise, not to judge. But every night, that voice came back. My mother's. Integrity isn't what you say when people watch. It's what you do when you're alone. Sevens. I tried to shake it, tried to drown it in work. But the truth kept bleeding through the spreadsheets. Thursday night, 1:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. An email from a Horizon contractor in Ghana. Subject: Please, someone needs to see this. Attached were photos, injuries, living conditions, pay stubs showing 0 for 3 months. My chest tightened. They'd sent it to the firm's general inbox, and somehow it landed in my queue. I could have ignored it, forwarded it, deleted it. Instead, I replied, I see it. 2 words. That was my mistake, or my beginning. By Friday morning, my screen lit up with an internal message from Hendricks. Call me ASAP. Heavens! I went to his office. He was standing, pacing. Zahra, did you respond to an external email from Horizon's contractor? I nodded. Yes. He reached out for help. Sevens. He sighed. We don't respond to those. You jeopardize confidentiality. That's not your lane. Sevens? I took a breath. If our name's on those contracts, it's my lane. Sevens. He slammed his hand on the desk. You think you can fix the world? You're playing in billion-dollar territory now. Stay in your role. Sevens. I stared at him. A man who'd just praised my intelligence 2 weeks ago, now treating me like a risk. So we just ignore it? Sevens. He leaned in. We protect our client. That's the job. If you can't do that, maybe you're not ready for this seat. Sevens. There it was. The catch. I left his office, hands shaking, not from fear, from clarity. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the skyline. I had 2 folders open on my desktop. Horizon Client and Evidence Confidential. Both full. One built my career. The other built my conscience. At 11:57 p.m., I started typing an internal memo to compliance. No drama, no emotion, just facts. Dates, contracts, names, violations. 23 pages. Attached the photos, signed it, saved a copy to a drive labeled just in case. Sevens. At 12:09 a.m., I hit send. The next morning, Hendricks called me in again. His face was calm. Too calm. You escalated the issue to compliance? Sevens. Yes, I said. He nodded. They'll handle it. Sevens. 2 hours later, I got the email. Effective immediately. Your project responsibilities have been reassigned. Sevens. No warning. No thank you. Just silence. For a moment, I thought I'd lost. Thought maybe I should have stayed quiet, played the game. But around 6:42 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from compliance. Your report initiated an external audit. Thank you for your integrity. Don't speak of this for now. Sevens. I smiled. Small, tired, proud. Because maybe nobody would know what I did. Maybe there'd be no headline, no award. But somewhere, someone would get paid, get justice, get seen. And that was enough. A week later, Hendricks called me back. Zahra, the audit cleared your name. They're keeping Horizon, but with new terms. Partners are impressed with how you handled it. He smiled like nothing happened. You've got guts. I'll give you that. Sevens. I looked at him, calm. No, I've got limits. There's a difference. Sevens. He blinked, confused. I stood, adjusted my jacket, and said, if leadership means silence, I'll build my own table. Sevens. Then I walked out of the glass tower, out of the hum of fake success, into sunlight that felt honest. Mama called that night. You sound lighter, she said. I laughed. Maybe because I finally stopped carrying what wasn't mine. And for the first time in months, I slept. No alarms, no fear, no noise, just peace. Because sometimes, the biggest promotion you'll ever earn is the one where you choose yourself. They thought they could bury me under their whispers. But I don't break under pressure. I crystallize. On the morning of March 18th, 8:47 a.m., I walked into that glass conference room knowing this wasn't just another meeting. It was an ambush disguised as professionalism, and I was ready for it. I had spent the last 10 nights rereading every policy, every email, every time-stamped mistake they pinned on me. And the more I read, the clearer it became. This wasn't negligence. It was orchestration. Someone wanted me out, and they were bold enough to think I wouldn't fight back. When I entered the room, there were 7 of them. I could smell the politics before the coffee even hit the table. James, the department head, sitting at the far end, pretending to scroll through his phone. Claire, my supposed mentor, looking at me like she already knew the verdict. And Marcus, the quiet one, the one who smiled when he lied, was holding a folder with my name on it. He cleared his throat and said, "Zahra, we've reviewed your recent performance reports, and there are concerns." Concerns. That word again. Cold, vague, weaponized. The same word they used when they let Maya go last summer. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to see how deep the hole they dug was. Then he pulled out the printed error logs, 17 of them, with timestamps and client codes. But I knew something he didn't. I had the original files, with metadata, and I had kept quiet just long enough for their confidence to rot from the inside. When he slid the papers across the table, I smiled. Not the polite kind. The kind that says, "You're about to wish you stayed quiet." "Sevens," I said. Funny, because this client didn't even onboard until March 3rd. But this error, I pointed at the paper, is dated February 28th, which means someone fabricated this file before the client even existed. The silence was nuclear. James shifted in his chair. Claire blinked twice, and Marcus froze. I leaned forward and said quietly, "So before we talk about my performance, maybe we should talk about who's falsifying internal documents." "Sevens." The room broke. Marcus stammered. James tried to regain control, saying, "Let's stay professional, Zahra." And I said, "Oh, I'm being professional. I'm just not being silent." Sevens, by 9:26 I had presented 42 screenshots, 6 cross-reference timestamps, and 1 email trail that connected Marcus directly to the data manipulation. It wasn't just an accusation, it was a timeline. They had underestimated the wrong woman. That meeting turned into an internal investigation within 48 hours. HR called it unexpected. I called it justice warming up. Sevens. But drama in corporate life isn't just about truth, it's about control. And I learned that exposing a lie doesn't end the war. It starts a bigger one. After the meeting, whispers followed me again, just softer this time, more careful. People who wouldn't make eye contact before suddenly started calling me ma'am. Respect, but laced with fear. And that's when I realized, sometimes power doesn't come from the title, or the desk, or the salary. It comes from being the one person who doesn't flinch when the room turns cold. The irony? A week later, Marcus requested medical leave. 2 months later, Claire transferred to another division, and James sent me a private email at 11:42 p.m. "You handled that with grace. Let's discuss your promotion next quarter." I never replied, because revenge wasn't the point. Mastery was. And as I walked past the glass conference room where it all began, I caught my reflection and thought, they tried to break me in front of everyone, and all they did was help me rebuild my crown. The boardroom wasn't my battlefield anymore. It was my throne room. They tried to bury me in silence, so I built a microphone out of my scars. After that boardroom war, I didn't want revenge, I wanted reform. It was 72 hours after the investigation closed when I realized the real battlefield wasn't just the table where they doubted me. It was the culture that made them think they could. I spent 11 years in that firm. I had seen bright women quit after one review, brilliant interns fade after one mistake, and men who weaponized tone, timing, and titles like shields. But after March 18th, the silence broke. People started coming to my desk. At first, quietly. "Zahra, how did you know what to say?" Then louder. "Zahra, can you look at this email? They're doing it again." Sevens. And that's when I realized, the moment you stop shrinking, you give others permission to expand. So I started something small, a lunch circle. Every Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. 6 women, 1 table, no titles. We talked about strategy, not gossip. We learned how to read policy the way lawyers read contracts, how to write emails that left no room for misinterpretation, how to hold eye contact when someone tried to cut you off mid-sentence. By week 6, there were 22 of us. By week 10, HR asked if they could sit in. I said, "You can listen, but you don't lead this." Sevens. The room shifted. For the first time in that company, women, especially Black women, weren't apologizing for being competent. And then came the unexpected. One Friday evening at 7, 14th, I got an email from the CEO. "I heard what you're building. Let's talk." My hands froze above the keyboard. I thought about my mother's words again. When they finally see your worth, speak calmly, but let them hear your power. That Monday, I walked into his office. He said, "You've changed the conversation around here." I said, "No. I just made the whispers audible." Sevens. 2 months later, they gave me a new title, Director of Culture and Compliance. But the truth? That title didn't change me. It just caught up with who I already was. I built a new mentorship system, cross-departmental, transparent, documented. Every bias complaint got logged, tracked, and resolved in writing. Every department head had to attend Ethics Fridays. And for the first time, promotion panels were 50% female, 30% Black or brown representation. It wasn't perfect. Some rolled their eyes. Some said, "You're making this personal." I said, "That's because professionalism without humanity is manipulation." Sevens. By the end of the fiscal year, turnover dropped 34%. Complaints fell by half. And for the first time, 3 women of color made partner, one of them from that very lunch circle. I remember standing in the elevator at 10:02 p.m. Lights dim, floors silent, holding my badge. It hit me. This was never about proving I was good enough for them. It was about proving we could rewrite the game. The company didn't just change policies, they changed the way they saw leadership. I became the story they used in new hire orientation. They called it the Zahra Standard. Sevens. But the truth? I didn't win because I was loud. I won because I was consistent. Because when they pushed, I didn't push back with rage. I pushed back with excellence. And every time I walk past that boardroom now, I smile, not because I survived it, but because I turned that battlefield into a blueprint. So if you're out there, sitting in some cold meeting room, feeling invisible, remember this. They can take your slides, your credit, your seat, just don't ever give them your voice. That's the one thing they can't fake, can't steal, can't silence. And that is how you rebuild. They didn't break me when they hated me, but I almost broke when they started to praise me. Success can sound a lot like silence until you realize it's the quiet before the next storm. It was July 2nd, 18 a.m. And my name had just been announced as Senior Director of Operations, a position that came with a $38 $100 raise, my own corner office, and more politics than oxygen. People clapped, smiled, congratulated me. But I saw the look in their eyes, the same look I saw the day they tried to bury me. Envy wears better clothes than malice. At first, it felt like victory. I was leading strategy for a multi-million-dollar client deal, the biggest in our firm's history, 12 does. $7 million over 5 years. I was the first Black woman to ever hold that contract. I thought I had finally rewritten the narrative. But 2 weeks in, the first crack appeared. A junior analyst, Naomi, 22 years old, fresh from Howard, came to me shaking, holding a folder. Ms. Zahra, they asked me to change the billing hours to match what was previously approved, but the hours don't add up. I took the folder. 47 hours billed is 74. Client code mismatch. I knew this pattern. Fraud. Hidden under language so polite it almost sounded ethical. I checked the names. Marcus's replacement, Todd, and his supervisor, Claire's old colleague. I felt that cold air again. The same one from the boardroom last year, only this time, I wasn't the target. I was the shield. I called Todd into my office. He came in smiling too wide, confidence dripping. "Zahra, you're new to this level," he said. "You'll learn that what's approved isn't always what's right, but it keeps the lights on." Sevens. I stared at him for 3 full seconds, then said, "So does the truth. It just burns brighter." Sevens. He laughed. But I wasn't joking. That night, 11:53 p.m. I sent an email, 28 recipients, subject line, "Compliance review, urgent." By morning, the firm was on fire. Legal, finance, HR, everyone scrambling. I didn't hide behind hierarchy. I signed it. Zahra Malik, Senior Director. No anonymity. No fear. By noon, the CEO called me in. His tone was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "You realize what you've started," I said. "An audit or a revolution?" Sevens. He sighed. "You're right, but you just cost us a client." I replied, "Then maybe we should stop building profits on dishonor." Sevens. That was the first VHOM. The second came when the board asked me to handle it quietly. They said the firm's reputation was at risk. I said, "So is its soul." They asked me if I could adjust my report. I said, "You hired me because I don't adjust the truth." And the third, that one cut deeper. It came from inside my own team. Naomi, yes, the same intern, was suddenly being blamed for improper data handling. They were using her as a scapegoat. A 22-year-old Black woman, standing right where I once stood. That's when I realized this wasn't just about integrity anymore. This was legacy. I walked into that board meeting at 8:01 a.m. carrying a printed 74-page audit trail, 2 flash drives, and the weight of every woman who'd ever been told to keep quiet. I didn't ask for permission. I presented evidence, line by line, name by name, invoice by invoice. The room turned to ice. The CFO muttered, Do you understand what you're doing? I said, completely. I'm saving this firm from itself. 7s. By the end of that week, 3 senior managers were suspended, including Todd. The audit led to a reorganization. The firm lost 1 client but gained back credibility that no amount of PR could buy. When it was over, Naomi walked into my office with tears in her eyes. She said, "You could have protected yourself and said nothing." I said, "Then I'd be no better than the ones who tried to silence me." That night, I sat alone in my office, lights off, city glowing outside the glass. 10:47 p.m. I opened my mother's old text from 3 years ago, the one that said, "When they want you to fail, let your wisdom do the talking." I whispered it out loud this time, like a prayer, like a promise. I realized something profound. Power isn't keeping your seat at the table. It's knowing when to flip the table over for what's right. They tried to test my loyalty to the company, but they forgot. I was never loyal to the company. I was loyal to my principles. And in this world, integrity is the loudest mic drop there is. They tried to silence my voice, but I turned it into a generation's echo. You see, power isn't what you take. It's what you leave behind when you walk away. It's been 3 years since that night in the glass office. 1, Mito 86 days. 7 new directors hired. 4 policy reforms passed. And somehow, people still stop me in the hallway and say, "Zahra, you changed this place." But what they don't know is, this place changed me too. Back then, I fought because I was angry. Now, I lead because I'm awake. I used to think success was measured by the number on my paycheck, $128, $90, then $150, $90, then $200, $90. But none of those numbers ever made me feel whole. What did? Seeing Naomi walk into her first board presentation last week, wearing confidence like armor, quoting something I told her 3 years ago. Speak like the room already believes you. 7s? And she did. She nailed it. And I realized legacy isn't what's written in the company newsletter. It's what's whispered in the next woman's courage. I mentor now. 37 young women across departments, some black, some brown, all brilliant. Every Wednesday at 7, you're up. We meet in that same room where I once had to defend my name. Now, we defend our future. We talk about boundaries, contracts, clarity, and survival. But more than that, we talk about truth. Because in this world, truth isn't a career skill. It's a lifeline. One day, one of them, Camille, asked me, "Ms. Zahra, what's the hardest part of making it?" And I told her, learning that making it alone is just another kind of failure. Vince, that's what no one tells you about success. It's lonely if you hoard it. Power only multiplies when you pass it on. So now, every time I get invited to speak at some conference or panel, and they ask me about resilience, I don't talk about hardship. I talk about community. I tell them about my mother, who worked 14-hour shifts and still taught me how to read court cases at midnight. About Naomi, who refused to let fear rewrite her ethics. About every black woman who's ever been told she was too much and still showed up anyway. Because we don't just rise, we rebuild. We don't just endure, we evolve. And to every young black professional listening right now who feels unseen, unheard, underestimated, hear me when I say this. You are not invisible. You are evidence. Evidence that brilliance can't be buried. Evidence that grace under fire is still grace. When they question your tone, let your results speak. When they question your worth, let your work echo. And when they try to break your spirit, remember, you come from generations that turned pain into poetry and silence into song. I keep a framed quote on my wall now, dated August 12th, 1998. My mother wrote it in her own handwriting. When they want you quiet, that's when your story matters most. I look at it every morning before I walk into that office, and I remember this isn't about being the first Black woman in the room anymore. It's about making sure I'm not the last. So if they ever try to erase you, write louder. If they try to overlook you, shine anyway. And when they try to bury your name, let them. Because they'll find out soon enough. Seeds grow underground. That's the legacy. That's the lesson. If Zahra's story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Let's lift each other up, because greatness multiplies when it's passed on. Tag a friend, a sister, or a colleague. Let's build a community where courage, truth, and excellence are celebrated together.